We could talk all day about the New World Order and the agenda and the coercion that's going on but I'm sure that you've all done your research because you're all sitting here today. But what I want to talk about is the fact that there's two realities going on here. There's this physical reality that we're in right now, and then you've got the vibrational reality.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have is we are frequency beings. We are electrical beings. So there are frequencies all around us. There are frequencies in us. So when you drop into a frequency of fear, then that lowers your immune system. So that has an impact, a direct impact on the body. So this what we're going through is like a wave or like a roller coaster. So every one of us has dropped into the fear, and then we're like, wait, what's going on? There's something else going on here. And then, you do a bit of research and then you
Doctors on Call program, and I was part of the pilot program. So towards the end of the project, which was 3 months later, I fielded the most calls. So my kids who are here with me today will tell you that I used to be on the phone all day. So this was set up by Nedbank, and they asked for volunteers, and we were asked to take phone calls from people across the country. And with the numbers going up so high, I was expecting that I would be getting phone calls, frantic people telling me which hospital can they go to, they're about to die. And as the day started, I can assure you that I probably got 2 emergency calls. The rest of the time, people would call me and say, "Hi, I'm calling from Sea Point in Cape Town, and the Dis-Chem down the road just closed. I have a bit of a cough. I'm not sure. I was there yesterday. What should I do? Because my Dis-Chem is closed." There may have been somebody there. I saw a sign that said someone is positive. So all I did was counseling, mostly counseling. And we had people from all walks of life calling. So young people, old people, different colored people, different age people across the country. And what I noticed was that it was mostly anxiety and fear. And all I kept doing was I was an admin clerk relaying what the government was telling us to tell them. Like first it was isolate for 4 days, then it was isolate for 6 days, then it was 10 days, then it was this and that, and this is the contact, and that's all I was doing. So we were more interested in keeping up to date with what the government was saying, so we could tell the people what was going on. So having taken all of these calls and then opening my practice again and seeing my patients, and the one thing that was common across was fear and anxiety.
Yes.
And then I started seeing that, because I specialize in weight loss, one of the things I do is liposuctions. I have my own theater, and I've always had masks, the one that you tie at the back. And on 27th of January, a patient of mine whose factory is just down the road here comes to me and she said, "I'm so sorry, doc, I haven't come for the last 3 weeks. But I haven't come because we were very busy with this Chinese virus." And remember, January 2020, it was still a Chinese virus. So I'm like, "What are you talking about? You mean the stuff that's on the news?" And she's like, "Yeah." I said, "How does that affect you?" She goes, "You know that China is the world's largest producer of masks, and they supply about 80% of the world with masks. And now that they need 3 times their normal supply, they have asked us, we are one of their suppliers, to give them back masks because they didn't have enough for their people." So if you know that the 3-ply masks have a filter, that's why it's called 3-ply, the front layer, the back layer, and then the filter. China supplies 100% of the filters around the world. So what they were doing is, even if they were not supplying the country with masks, they were supplying the country with filter. So across the world, people had some masks lying because, of course, the virus was still in China. So they asked this company, "Will you guys manufacture?" They said, "Sure, we will, but you need to send us the raw materials, and we generally specialize in the N95, but not the medical one. It's the one that the builders use. So it's one of those, the painters." They said, "Yes, we'll do that for you." So it had 4 to 6 weeks on the water to send the filter, X amount of time to go back. But wait, in the meantime, we've got a container of 3-ply masks. Would you guys like that? And I can tell you this because it happened in my office. And while she was talking to me, I called my PA, whose name is also Mel. I was like, "Mel, please can you just check how many masks we got in theatre?" because Mel, the patient, says that there aren't enough. So Mel phones, and this was 27th of January. There were no masks anywhere at any of my suppliers. And we were paying R1.50 plus VAT for a mask. So we didn't bother buying from this company because their masks were R2.50. And R2.50 plus VAT for a box of 50 masks is a huge difference. So I didn't even bother. So I had half a box of masks. I was a bit frantic because I had so many cases booked, and I only used 2 masks, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for my PA and myself. So this patient said she's going to send some to me in the meantime, but I should definitely try and get hold of them. And then she said, so when they asked this company in China who was supplying them if they would take this, they said yes. So this company sold them the masks at 35 Rand each, and they made 83 million Rand on that container. And then I was like, this is a bit weird. And then I started doing this Doctors on Call thing end of March, and I did it March, April, May, June. And because I knew of the mask shortage, I started being involved in the mask campaign. Because that was, I protect you and you protect me, because there was all the stuff about, the spread, etc., etc. And so I was going around. My kids used to be packing stuff for me with me as well. And I used to drive around to the clinics myself when it was permit required, not allowed to. And I swear to God, I was expecting to see people keeling over and dying because of the amount of numbers there were. So I expressed that to a few friends of mine who are ICU doctors, and they were like, you know what, yeah, we have 6 patients in King Edward at the moment, in private hospital at the moment, but they're actually King Edward nurses. And they're all mild, but because they are nurses, they were told to come here. So initially, what we were told and what was happening, I found in my gut that something wasn't right. So I started speaking up about it. But I was only speaking out about my experience, not about what someone else was saying. And I was encouraging people who were posting stuff on Facebook, talk about what you know. Because I keep asking, how do they verify the numbers? How do they tell us what's going on? I mean, the numbers that come out every day, which is the fear factor, telling you, we've never in our lives had to wake up any morning and see how many people were dying of heart attacks, how many people had strokes, how many people had car accidents, how many people commit suicide. We've never had to do that ever before. And there are those people who sit on that friggin' Twitter account that the NICD posts every day, and they'll screenshot and send it everywhere, screenshot. And even if those who don't want to know what the numbers are, somebody is sending them on. And I'm in about 10 or 15 doctors groups. I'm admin about 6 or 7. And very quickly there was a divide. And I found for me, my catharsis was writing poems. So I wrote a poem about a year ago. It's on my Facebook page. And I remember ending off by saying that, divided, what we're going to see is a division of people. And when you divide people, the only thing to gain from that is to win a war. And the easiest way to do it is to divide people. So we are divided into anti-vax, pro-vax, anti-pandemic. There is a pandemic, there is a virus, there's no virus. Ivermectin works, ivermectin doesn't work. We are splintered into so many different groups as people, as doctors and as scientists. And regardless of which group you belong to, if you don't realize what the bigger picture is, we are in big trouble. So I am not pro anything except pro choice, because my biggest fear is that my liberty is being taken away. So I am not a person that's going to tell anyone not to take the vaccine. I'm not going to be anyone to tell the person not to take the vaccine. I am going to tell you, do your due diligence, know what's going on, make informed choices, and make sure that it is your choice. Coercion is not consent. And anybody who is coerced either way, someone tells you have to take the vaccine, or someone makes you feel pressured not to take the vaccine, that still is not your choice. And if you can hold on to that, it doesn't matter which group you belong to. Our liberty is most important.
Absolutely.
So that's where I come from. I am a pro-choice, pro-liberty activist. And the people who don't see the bigger picture, unfortunately, are in the dark. And sometimes I wonder whether it's worth it to wake them up. Because I don't think it's time to awaken the sheep. I think it's time to find the lions. Those who are ready to roar and to spread the message. Because those who are lost, you know what? We spread the message, and it's up to God to give wisdom and to give guidance. And that's what we should continue to remember.
Agreed.
So that's my little bit as an intro. I just want to tell you 2 minutes about my opinion about antibodies. So if you look at antibodies are formed when your body finds something foreign, and like an antigen. An antigen could be a virus, a bacteria, a pathogen, even a toxin. Your body sees it as something harmful, so your body will mount a response and create antibodies. We know that natural antibodies give you lifelong immunity, and the lifelong immunity you can get, we know, for years. Because the thing is, we've been studying immunity for years. How old is the vaccine? At best, a year. So if somebody tells you that your immunity from a vaccine, I'm going to call it vaccine under inverted commas, you know why. So if you take the injection of jab or the vaccine, and someone tells you that you have better immunity than somebody with natural immunity, all you've got to do is ask that person for evidence. Because I can assure you they'll come up with articles, but there'll be way more showing you that natural immunity is better. So there is a study that shows, I'm quite sure that people here by now have known somebody who tested positive on the PCR test. I won't go into that as well. But if somebody had COVID, you'll find in a household of about 6 people, you'll have 2 people that are positive and then 4 not. But they're all wearing the same function at the same place, exposed, and suddenly on day 4 when the person starts getting symptoms, then they'll test everybody, but 4 are negative and 2 are positive, 2 are sick. Why is it that in the same household that it doesn't spread? There's quite a few reasons for that. The first reason is, could be that the PCR test was actually negative and they had something else. It could be that the diet in different people is different, because there's a very soon to be published amazing work done by South African scientists that will show you that sulfate and magnesium play a big role in which people are going to get infected with any virus. So that could be that. And the other reason could be that those people who didn't get the virus now had protection from previously. So either they were exposed at their work or exposed in the last year and they got SARS-CoV-2 antibodies, or they got SARS-CoV-1 antibodies, or they've got influenza antibodies, because there's a paper that's published that shows that there's cross-reaction. So somebody who had another virus who got antibodies to that may now get a protection to SARS because they've had previous protection. And that won't necessarily show up on an antibody test, because you're testing specifically for SARS-CoV antibodies. You're not testing for the flu or SARS-CoV-1, but that still offers you protection. So it could be that. There's actually a study that shows that people who were infected with SARS-CoV-1 about up to 17 years ago had protection from this virus. And for me, what we're trying to do in our group, which is the Caring Healthcare Workers Coalition, is we offering people antibody tests to show you whether you had COVID before on a PCR test or whether you had it and you don't know. If you've got natural antibodies, then there's no reason for you to be having a vaccine which is supposed to give you antibodies to be protected, because you already are. And if the argument is that natural antibodies wane, then how long do you know that vaccine antibodies don't wane? Because they started off with 1 dose, and then now you're going to take a 2nd dose and a 3rd dose, and then it's going to be a booster, and then next year booster, another year, another year. So that's basically what's going to happen. So if you know that you've got antibodies right now, because work is telling you you've got to take a vaccine, you're like, dude, I got antibodies. So until I got them, I don't need to be taking the vaccine. And you have every right to do that, and you also have every right to tell your employer, if you want me to take the vaccine, please sign this form that says any side effects and anything that goes on, you are responsible. Very quickly, they won't sign that. So that is my bit on natural immunity. There's tons of articles. You can go to our website, which is caringhcws.co.za. And also you will find a lot of information on Mark Trozzi on his site. I actually link up a lot of his articles. And final bit of information that I'd like to share with you guys. I've just been recently appointed on the steering committee of the World Council for Health. We're now a body that is parallel to the WHO. We've got scientists from all around the world. There's 6 of us on the steering committee. So Tess Laurie, Shabnam's on there. There's Mark Trozzi's on there, Jennifer Hibbard, Tracy Chandler, Karen McKenna. There's a few of us, and we have now got 38 affiliates from around the world. So our Caring Healthcare Workers is an affiliate. We've got doctors and scientists from all around the world, and we're going to be giving you latest, unbiased, up-to-date, Yimna was helping me do the video. So we're doing unbiased, latest information that you can trust. So this is from a voice of somebody who's done their own work, and whether it's peer-reviewed or published, it's going to be regardless, because that person, we know that they're censoring. So this is a place where you're going to get information. I'll ask Mike to share a link. We are launching, we've done a soft launch on Thursday. Our full launch is on Tuesday, and going forward, whenever we have council meetings, everybody will be invited because it's going to be transparent, so you'll be able to see what's happening, and everybody will be invited. So that's the World Council for Health. Well, thank you very much. If you would like to take some questions, I don't mind.
To find out, in terms of a pathogen and a toxin, so I would assume that COVID would be a pathogen. Would the symptoms of both of those be the same? Because I've read all very similar.
Yes, a toxin is something that's harmful to your body, and a pathogen is harmful to your body.
Yeah.
So then, yes, what effects that you have in your body will be similar. That is why I said your body will mount a response, whether it's to a toxin or to a pathogen. Pathogen is usually something live, so like a virus, a bacteria, fungus, and also toxin is not. It will be like mercury or lead or
It could be a
graphene.
poisoning of sorts. from-
Surely not a
Correct.
V.
Correct.
You mentioned sulfur and magnesium. Please can you expound on that?
Well, the article is going to be published soon, but basically what it says is that if you have low sulfur and magnesium in your body, your cell membranes are leaky, so those people are more likely to get viruses, bacteria, pathogens through it. So what we do when we treat a person for a viral infection is when any virus gets through the cell membrane, we try to do something to prevent replication. But if you block it before it actually gets into the cell with sulfur and magnesium, you will be able to prevent that. So it's not just this virus, it's any virus. And things that also affect your membrane, that affect your sulfur, like high alcohol consumption and high caffeine, and also fear and anxiety, change your magnesium and sulfate, so that will also make your membranes leaky.
Does diet help?
Yes, unfortunately, it's things like a high meat diet because you need something high in sulfur. And we're going to be posting that article soon on our website. But
There you go.
if you do any, there's a cheap thing called flowers of sulfur. You buy it at Discount. It's like $30. You know, 27 rand, 15 rand. Sorry, my daughter bought them. So it's 15 rand, half a teaspoon a day for prevention. Somebody who's sick, who's got any illness, you'll do 1 teaspoon a day or 1 teaspoon twice a day. That's flowers of sulfur.
So could you please give me your website that you mentioned earlier?
Okay, it's called caring, hcws.co.za. If you go to my personal Facebook page, which is Dr. Katz, Dr. Nasiba Katrada, all of the articles, I always link there, then you'll find the link. So it's caringhcws.co.za. We've got a website and we've got a Facebook page. And the World Council for Health is called that, World Council for Health.
Just quickly, I've spoken or had contact with information from a funeral director, one in England and one here in Durban, and they're seeing a spike in deaths from people who've taken had the vaccine, sometimes within hours of the vaccination. So for me, there is a concern that is being underreported, and therefore medics are not in a good position to advise a patient as to the real potential harm associated with it. Have you come across this information?
Yes, I have, because I'm actually in contact with a few of the burial societies as well. So the discrepancy with that comes in two. The first thing is, when they made the decision that COVID was transmitted through a dead body and we don't know for how long, most of the burial societies, like I'll talk about the Muslim Burial Society, we've got quite a few in Durban, they made a decision amongst themselves that they will use one for COVID burials. So if you have to go and look at the stats that are happening in one, they'll be, wow, so many people are dying. But that's because there was a query, COVID death, they have to bury there. But if you take that person's normal daily, monthly burial rate and you divide it, because they're now doing everybody's, it wouldn't be as much higher. That's the first thing. The second thing, it is not mandatory to put a person's vaccine status on a death certificate.
No.
So the issue was, if a person had COVID and 6 to 8 weeks later they died, and there was some hint that the person had COVID, it's a COVID death.
Yeah.
But if a person had a vaccine and died the same day, or 6 to 8 weeks later, you have to prove that it was a vaccine death. So very few doctors and very few paramedics actually ask. So I've made contact with a gentleman who actually picks up the body, because you know with Muslim burials we bury very quickly.
Yeah.
And there was another thing is, many times they told families, and I know this firsthand, they said if you want the body, mark it as COVID positive. and they
Right.
did.
Right.
So they did that because they didn't want issues.
Yeah.
And now we've got the other issue where you all know that when a loved one passes away, the family is going through grieving and mourning, and that issue is quite upplayed because you try and ask a family member, can we take this body for a post-mortem? What does that mean? Cut up the body. Very few people are going to agree. So now for us to prove that this death was actually due to
Blood clots or
due to
heart
the
attacks.
vaccine, there were blood clots, etc.
Yeah.
Very few people. And another thing that's happened is suddenly in the last 2 months in South Africa specifically, the price of a private post-mortem has skyrocketed. So what you paid before and what you pay now, very different. So finding that causal link is difficult.
Okay.
So definitely I would agree that there's some discrepancy there.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. Just wanted to ask, recently we had a case where a 21-year-old Down syndrome was positive with COVID, but yet his death certificate showed he died of a heart attack natural causes,
Usual story.
but he was positive with COVID.
Yes, that's the discrepancy that I'm talking. There are certain people, like if I had to see a person that was COVID positive, you can die of COVID and you can die with COVID. So there's two different things. So if a person was COVID positive and died in a car accident, they died with COVID. They didn't die of COVID. So that's the thing. So there's this memes going around where the guy dies, a tractor runs over him and he goes, man, COVID positive dies with of COVID positive. They will use that as a stat because that person counts as a COVID positive death. But is it COVID positive is it death with COVID or death from COVID? And then it's so vague because you're talking about pathogens and toxins. There are people who get such varied symptoms. We know full well 80 to 85% of people are asymptomatic firstly. Never in our lives before had we been scared if somebody was asymptomatic. So what happens is when a person is positive, and they got, we've seen things like just tiredness or just runny nose. We know those are probably symptoms. But then fatigue, dandruff, they got in our list. Yeah, dandruff is a symptom of COVID. Impotence. Yeah, it's there. It's on the list. Impotence is a symptom of COVID. So they made it so broad that anybody who's got something that, like before, about 2 years ago, if I had a patient that I had investigated for body pains, and I did all the tests and it comes back negative, everything, I would put it as fibromyalgia. And somebody who has a flu and wasn't getting better, we call it yuppie flu, so that's flu of the rich people. So there's these entities that we don't know what the cause was. Now everything is COVID. So you have to do a COVID test. And here's the other thing, if the COVID test is negative, they'll tell you, treat is positive. I've had 6 COVID tests. I think between my kids, they've had about 6 as well, and all our tests have been negative. So we've actually got the other issue where because we are around other people, you got some symptoms, whether it's the cat, I'm allergic to, whatever it is, we don't want other people to start going around thinking, do I have COVID? And regardless of which category you fall into, you have that because the guilt is there. They've shoved it down our throats. So if you've got a flu and you make a family member sick, then the family member has to come standard.
CDC
so they didn't give any guidance as to what happens to all those people who tested positive in the last 2 years. There's an excellent article, I posted it on our Facebook page. What's that? That's yours. So basically I posted that article, have a look, see there, because there's some say that up to 50 to 80% of the people who actually were positive didn't really have COVID because that test is not. So we'll only know, well, I guess when they give us some guidance.
Sorry, Dr. Kat, just one more question. How accurate is the PCR test for what virus, what strain you've got at that point of time?
Okay, so let me just give you a little story about the PCR test. So the PCR test, what it is a polymerase chain reaction. So it basically, you look for a little piece of anything and you look at it under the microscope. So I'll give you an example. I've got a very close family member of mine who works for a company, I'm not going to mention names, and they do testing for various people, and they basically work a lot with vet vaccines. So veterinary vaccines, they've been doing it for over 20 years. So they had a call from a random organization, from a halal point of view, because with us there's certain foods you're not allowed to eat. So they wanted them to test a packet of flings, chips, flings chips. So they asked them to check with this how much of this is actually maize. So when they did the analysis on that, they found bovine DNA, they found human DNA, and they found bird poop. Of course, they did find maize, but that's because in a sealed packet of chips, when you multiply it so many times, you can pick up anything depending on how many times you multiply. So in my experience, from reading about the PCR test, I know firstly that it's non-specific. What I also know is that it is so sensitive that it can even pick up viral particles. So generally, this is from my reading, right? So what happens is, if for example there's an outbreak, or say for example flu in this area, and it was a new virus or something we've done, they take 1,000 people, and they'll look at the 1,000 people and they'll say, okay, we're going to do PCR tests for everybody, and we're going to see which people are symptomatic and which people are very sick and which people are asymptomatic. And then we're going to record how many cycles we did and have a look-see. So in the asymptomatic people, if the cycle was like, they had to go up to 35 or 40, then they'll say, okay, that doesn't count. In the people so the more you replicate, the better you can tell. So if they go to the symptomatic people and it's 30, they will say, okay, that's the number cut off. So we won't cycle more than 30. So anybody who's above 30 is a negative. Anybody who's below 30, because we found that even with this amount of virus, these people are symptomatic, we will count these people positive. So I know that that has to be done first before you choose the number of 30, 35, or 40. Generally with viruses, it's between 26 and 30. The labs currently in South Africa are cycling at 38 and 40. So that's the PCR test. So that was in the beginning, if you know that they said to us, we mustn't do the home testing because they're not accurate and they're not sensitive, all of that. So that's the test that I do. So I do the swab myself because it's not a sensitive test, but if you got it, it's going to pick it up. Because you don't want it to pick up if you got particles, you want it to pick up if you got virus. And that's the exact same thing about the natural immunity. So the spike protein is a particle, it's a part of the virus. And when you take a vaccine, you're going to get antibodies to just the spike. But if you had COVID and you had the virus, you're going to get antibodies to the entire virus. That's why natural immunity is superior, because it covers you from everything. Because we know that the virus mutates, and if the virus mutates, and if God forbid the spike mutates, none of the vaccines are going to work because they're only giving you antibodies against the spike. So that's one of the reasons why the flu vaccine has to be given every year, because at best, the flu vaccine is between 20 to 45% effective per year, because they thumbsuck a variant and they admitted to it because they don't know what's going to come that year. So they thumbsuck a variant, make a vaccine. That is why you could take a yearly shot of the flu vaccine, because you're hoping to cover that variant. And a virus by its nature needs a host. So if its intention is to kill everybody, itself is going to die. So we know that a virus mutates to become more transmissible, not necessarily more virulent. Because if it kills more people, then there's no host and then there's no virus. And it knows that. And it cannot exist by itself. It needs to be in a host.
That's something that you need to keep aware of. That not necessarily means that you've got the condition. The other thing is that obviously you might be aware that CDC, given a number of other organizations, but over 100 countries have officially acknowledged they don't have official scientific data or evidence of the virus itself, of this SARS-CoV-2. So that's another whole subject matter on its own. But people need to be aware of that, because the whole idea is to scare you of a virus so you can get to take the vaccine. So that's something that...
Yes. The fear factor that I mentioned about it was, I've had a patient that reads a lot. I mean, everybody does, because we surrounded with information and misinformation, and we don't know ourselves what to believe. And she read Dr. Shankara's Chetty's protocol, and he says day 8 because it becomes a hypersensitivity reaction. She phoned me every day, twice a day, on her day 8, day 9, and 10. Dr. Kat, am I going to die? Dr. Kat, is today the day? And I swear to God, miraculously, on day 10, she was 100%. Day 8, and I just indulged her because I knew exactly what it was, and every time counseling, and I spent a lot of time counseling because exactly what you said. So I've experienced it. Also, a person sick for a week, I saw them during the looting, handing out bread and milk. I saw it, because I did the test in the family, so I knew these people were all COVID positive, giving out without masks and stuff. Comes to me just to confirm that what the sick that she had during the looting week was COVID. I did the test for it. She's like, what's going to happen now? It was same thing that happened for the last week. You're going to just carry on managing it. But that's the thing. As soon as they hear that they're positive, so I just said that positive means that you can be positive that you now got natural immunity. So that's what I said.
Very good. When you're positive, you got natural immunity. Very good.
Thanks very much, Dr. Cat. I really appreciate that. Just to follow up on a couple of things, I personally got sick with this supposed disease, and it was because of the PCR test, in my opinion. I've been totally fine. I got the PCR test, 3 weeks later they had it, but they shoved that thing so far up your nose, it's terrible. And I personally, this may be my conspiracy theory side of things, I believe that they're trying to give us anything that they can. But I'm grateful that I've got natural immunity now, because there's no ways that I'm taking this vaccine, that's 100%. Okay, so I'm moving on. I'm going to ask Penny to come forward. Penny's going to speak to us on alternative treatments and things like that. Yeah, I'll just pass it across to you. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Penny Slane. It's lovely to see a whole lot of faces here and people breathing, which is
Yes.
so yay.
Yay.
Okay, so I'm a yoga teacher and I studied transpersonal psychology and consciousness in the UK. I've opened up a healing clinic in Durban North, and we could talk all day about the New World Order and the agenda and the coercion that's going on and. But I'm sure that you've all done your research because you're all sitting here today. But what I want to talk about is the fact that there's two realities going on here. There's this physical reality that we're in right now, and then you've got the vibrational reality.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have is we are frequency beings. We are electrical beings. So there are frequencies all around us. There are frequencies in us. So when you drop into a frequency of fear, then that lowers your immune system. So that has an impact, a direct impact on your body. So this what we're going through is like a wave or like a roller coaster. So every one of us has dropped into the fear, and then we're like, wait, what's going on? There's something else going on here, and then you do a bit of research, and then you figure out something, and then you're on the rise, and then you drop into it again. But the bottom line is, this is a great opportunity. This is a massive opportunity. Number one, for awakening, and number two, to actually get your vibrational frequencies to lift, to boost your immune systems naturally, to use nature and to connect to one another. So when we're in that fear, that mindset of, what's happening, our energy field literally closes in. Okay, so it gets smaller. So your frequency literally gets smaller. Okay, and when we lift out of that and we come from the heart center, your energy field expands. So as you're sitting here right now, your energy field, you're in touch with everyone here. Okay, so you can literally lift every single person in this room, and that means you can increase everyone's immune system around you. So what I teach at the healing clinic is a whole lot of natural healing techniques, and we have a whole protocol, and like you were saying about ivermectin and all sorts of different things that work. But the main thing here is to connect to the earth. So you've got it. What's your name?
I'm Dave.
Dave. Hi, Dave.
Hi.
So Dave is sitting there with no shoes on. So actually, I'm going to take my shoes off as well. So we need to connect to the earth, and we need to connect to one another, and we need to ground ourselves. So the more you can, take the rubber soles off your feet and start connecting to the earth energies, that immediately starts healing your body. Okay. Simple thing like drinking more water, being mindful of the water that you're drinking. If you can filter your water or boil your water, there's lots of different natural techniques that you can, you utilize your water. Okay, being mindful having mindful relationships with people, being mindful of what you're eating and how you're eating, okay? With regards to frequencies, at the clinic, I scan people and I look at people's bodies, and every organ in your body holds its own frequency. So the liver holds a vibrational frequency, the pancreas holds a vibrational frequency, your blood holds a frequency, the trees outside hold a frequency. So I look and I see, okay, what's your liver doing? And then now let's rebalance. So we use frequencies to heal. And you can use frequencies to harm, as we know, with the whole 5G thing going on or whatever, but you can use frequencies to heal as well. So I've got one of my machines here today that I can go around and show you, anyone who wants to try. You can feel the frequency. We create an electrical current in your body that can literally kill viruses and kill pathogens and toxins and let your body heal. So I mean, this is a great opportunity for everyone to just become aware that actually there is mass consciousness occurring, there is an awakening occurring, there is a shift going on in the world. So this is much bigger than we realize. So there's the macrocosm and there's the microcosm. So there's things going on at a microscopic level in your bodies right now. And what's happening is we need to forget about the fear. Get out of that, get away from that. And what you focus on expands. So focus on the love, focus on the immune system, focus on your relationships with one another, focus on the truth. And connect with like-minded people, because I think the people who don't want to see, let them be. If they don't want to see a greater truth or an opportunity, that's their journey. But if you feel intuitively, you can feel it in your gut, if something's right or wrong, go with that, because that never lies. And you can honestly trust your own bodies. And if you feel something is wrong, it's wrong. So go where it feels right, and keep connecting with people where they're like-minded, they're on your wavelength. Literally, wavelength, frequency, tap into the frequencies. Okay, all right. Okay, yeah, so if anyone would like to just have a go on one of our machines, just let me know, and then we can go around and you can feel what it feels like. But connect as well with holistic practitioners. I know there is a lady in Kloof who uses vibrational frequencies. There's another person in Belito. So find those people, do the healing, do the shadow work.
Where are you in Devon?
I'm just in 82 Kensington Drive. Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
So I had a patient that came to me about a year ago, and she asked me, she's like, Doc, do you have issues with your gait, my gait? I said, always, I'm perpetually changing motors. And she goes, what else? I go, I don't know. She goes, what about your watches? I'm like, I'm changing batteries. She goes, I asked her why. And she goes, I feel a very strong electromagnetic energy. She did, and I always have had that issue. So she also said she could feel like a fire burning around me, like passion and all of that, but she spoke specifically about that. So is that a thing that you aware of, the electromagnetic energy?
That is a thing, and I'm just absolute nightmare around laptops and different things, because things just switch off around me. I think that
yesterday I was watching something while I was designing the forms for today. I was watching something on TV. And she comes down and the sound just goes up. And I'm like, Yumna. And she's like, it's not me, Mom, I'm just putting the microwave on. But she had the microwave on, and then she left. And I was halfway through the movie and no problem with the sound. Yumna comes back down and something else. I'm like, Yumna, it's you. And she goes, not me, I'm not and this is yesterday. So we clicked a lot, and then the two of them, we were just talking about it. So before I came here, we did an antibody test for one of them, because she's convinced that she had COVID. And I've had 6 tests, all negative. She's had tests, and she's checking now. She's like, I'm so sure I had it. I said, no, maybe you have antibodies against it already, like the other ones I was talking about, the memory cells. And perhaps because of the vibration and the frequency. I don't need my mask in surgery. I wait only if a patient comes in and gives me an attitude.
I cannot agree with them. I was on a plane to Joburg last month, and they literally nearly threw me off the plane. I eventually just gave in, you know, just after an hour of the plane not being allowed to take off because Mike's not putting on his bloody mask. You know what I mean? But finally, and then the driver comes to me afterwards and he's like, well, why didn't you put your mask on? And I was looking, you know, and I didn't even want to talk to him, and I just ignored him and I walked off. And you know, there's nothing transmissible. There's nothing transmissible. You're not going to get sick from somebody else.
No.
And if you do, you'll get over it. You'll get strong. Stop it. Stop it. Make a statement. Don't do it. Don't wear that stupid thing. Don't agree with the Ramaphosa. Don't agree with all of these things. They're just liars. They're controlling you. And they've got into your head. Stand up. Be brave. Be strong. That's what this is about. Thanks, guys. I've talked enough. Thanks, Mike. Dr. Cat was about to leave. To those guys that are meeting here, it's about to expire. So thanks for joining us. I think we're just going to have a question and answer session. But before I do that, there's one other thing that Arthur, I'd just like to have Arthur come chat.
Yep.
From your religion, from the way you understand finance, from the way you understand law, from the way you understand everything, it's probably not true. And it has been created for a purpose, and that purpose has been to divide. That purpose has been to control. This Vatican agenda, and I'm going to call that openly because that's what it is. This Vatican agenda has been in play for close to 2,000 years, and they've had one plan. And that plan is to control the world, to control the earth under one governance system. Ramaphosa used that word himself. I think it was about a year before this thing happened. It was 2019, I heard him on TV, and I don't watch TV, but as I walked past, I heard him say, this new world order. And what is it? What is the new world order? And what is our response to it? The new world order is a system of governance that's controlled by the Vatican. And those of you who think the Vatican is the Catholic Church, you're mistaken, it's not. They created Christianity, they created the Catholic Church, but that's not all there is. The Catholic Church makes up less than 1% of the Vatican's involvement on earth. Less than 1%. If I tell you how much money comes into the Vatican, it would shock you. Just through the Catholic Church alone, again, and I'm going to tell you facts because I've asked these questions. I was in Berlin with a friend a few years ago, and her boyfriend worked for the Catholic Church, and I said to him, you know, because now I was interested, I said, what do you do? And he said, I manage the apartments, the flats that are owned by the Catholic Church in Germany. So I said, well, how many are there? How many flats are there? And he said, Mike, I'm not going to tell you about office buildings. I'm not going to tell you about schools and hospitals and houses and estates and wine farms and everything like that. I'm just going to tell you about flats. And I said, how many? So he said, the Catholic Church owns at least 100,000 flats, apartments in Germany. Yeah, and he said, and this is repeated in every country on earth. Yep. Every country, Bhutan, Myanmar, you name a country. They've got the same involvement in every country. Yeah. In the Vatican is an office for every country on earth, and they control what happens in that country from that office. The CIA, the FBI, Mossad, all of these organizations are controlled by them. Every government is controlled by them. They do what they say because they control the money, they control the World Bank, they control everything. Totally, totally controlled. And so the monster that we are fighting is massive, but we can win. But we can only win with unity. And we have to unite. We have to pull together. And we have to start understanding that we can win. We've got to stop going, oh, well, you know, this thing is so big, we could never win it. Listen, there's more of us than there are of them. Way more. Ramaphosa lied the other night when he was saying that there were so many people being injected. Believe me, it's probably about half. We are saying between 5 and 6% of South Africans have been injected. Abantu, the black people are not taking this thing.
Yeah.
They are refusing it because you know why? Because they're awake.
Yeah.
You see, all your knowledge has put you to sleep.
Yes.
all your knowledge, all of this great stuff, all of your learning. What do they talk about? The tree of life and the tree of knowledge, right? And what is the tree of life? The tree of life is your spiritual understanding, it's your spiritual awakening, it's understanding. And you see, what we did when we came to Africa is we stole it. That was the rape. That was the murder in Africa. It wasn't about taking the land. It was about taking their soul, taking their spirit, taking that spiritual understanding that these people had. That's what happened here. It's not about the land. The African people, black people, are frustrated. But they don't know why they're frustrated. They can't remember what it was that was taken away. And that is what we're going to give back. We're going to remind them. And we're going to help to remind them of who they are, what they have. Because that's how healing is going to come here. Not by asking for forgiveness, but by giving back. Because forgiveness is one thing, it's not about land. You see, the political structure is going to tell us it's about land, because they want to make it another divisive thing. It's got nothing to do with land at all. It's got nothing to do with land. And in any case, the land that they are taking back, they're taking into their communist Chinese agenda. Because those are the people who really are controlling this country. The Vatican's using the Chinese to take control of this country. 6 million Chinese in South Africa today. And coming in every day in their plane loads. What for? Because there's an agenda. Because this money that Ramaphosa has taken, and he's used to go and buy his apartments in Dubai, wherever, and whatever he's doing with it, that money comes from China. That money was supposed to be for the country. He's stolen it. He has sold us out. And he needs to go. And I want to tell you that the DA, IB, whatever, no one is better. They're all the same. It's political.
Yes.
And the political system is owned by the Vatican.
Yep.
Because they created it.
Yep.
They created it. And that is the back that we need to break. That back of this political control that is over all of us. And that is what we're standing for. That is what I've been shown all those years ago. How to do this. But we have to do it together. And there's a march on the 27th with MK and various other, and I'm going to be there. And I'm going to speak at this march with Mkhonto. Because those guys don't really understand. They're just eggs for no margin. And that's not enough. You know? It's not enough. Hey, we want to just march. We'll march. What? There's no point in marching unless you have an end goal. Unless you're going somewhere with that march. There's no point in gathering people like you guys here unless there's a purpose. Do you know what I mean? Look at the combined power and the combined strength that's just in this room. You think of everything you've understood, you've learned, where you've come from, the memories, everything that each and every one of us has. And if we can harness that, what can we do with it? Imagine with 100,000 people, with 1 million people. And that's where we're going. Because abantu abasabi lutho. We are not afraid.
Yeah. We're not afraid.
And we will not fear. We will not give in to fear. We will stand. And it's time to do that. And it's time to become infectious with this. With fearlessness. Become infectious. Share it with other people. Speak to other people. Wake them up. Well, don't even wake. It's not about being awake or asleep. It's just being unconscious. And get the momentum. Because that's what we're here for. That's what we're ultimately here for. We all think, I just kind of bumbled into this meeting. No, you didn't. You didn't just bumble into this meeting. You're here for a purpose. Every one of us is here for a purpose. And that purpose is to create awareness. That purpose is to speak to others. That purpose is to change others' lives. That's what we're here for. This is a big job. This is a massive job that we have ahead of us. But it's not about we can do it. We are going to do it. And we are busy doing it. You know, if I just think yesterday and I'm not just talking about you guys, because meeting you, and you're all powerful people, but the powerful people that we met yesterday, these generals from MK, and the guy who arranged the meeting with the traditional leaders up in Soweto, he was there yesterday, and various other people are pulling together, and they're saying it's time to unite, it's time for us to work together, and that we stop looking at other people as inferior or superior, that we just understand that we are one.
Yes.
There's a oneness that's necessary for us to win this. Because we do win. We do win. Sinner van Rensburg wasn't wrong. He saw the right thing. Various other people, there are African prophets who've seen this too. They talk. There's an airplane every day. Every day there's an aeroplane that flies to England, loaded with gold and diamonds to pay this nasty queen. And that has to stop. Really? Every day. I don't know how many days in a year, 360 something. All of those days, that plane flies. Doesn't matter whether it's Christmas or Easter, it goes. That has to stop. We owe her nothing.
Yep.
We have to come out of the Commonwealth. We have to stop. We need to stop pussyfooting around with the enemy. Because this is what it is. And they only control us because we allow them to control us. And we've got to stop allowing them to control us. And we have to take the control. We have to take the power. And it becomes the power of the people running their own country. That's where we're going. That's where we need to go.
Yeah.
And I'm inviting all of you guys. If you're not part of what we're doing, just get involved, please. And start, this is going to become a group here for this area that you're in. Join it, have meetings regularly, talk about, strategize, create ideas, how you're going to do things. Become evangelists, for lack of a better word. Go from door to door, whatever it is that you decide to do it, but do something. Because every minute that you sit doing nothing is another minute wasted that we could have used to be doing something. So that is my encouragement, that is my challenge really to each one of us. I guess I don't have any choice. I just have to do this because I've got probably a little else to do. This is what I'm doing. But, I can't put that thing on my face. I can't put it on my face.